Have you ever heard a song so catchy you just couldn't stop moving? Imagine that feeling, but 100 times more intense. And it doesn't stop for days, or even weeks. Today, we're diving into one of history's most bizarre and terrifying events. The Dancing Plague of 1518. Get ready, because this story is stranger than fiction. Our story begins in July 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, which is now part of modern-day France. It was a hot, oppressive summer. In a narrow, cobblestone street, a woman named Frau Trophia stepped out of her home. But she wasn't just going for a stroll. Without any music, without any warning, she began to dance. Her movements weren't joyful. They were frantic, convulsive. Her arms flailed, her feet stomped against the ground, her face a mask of silent anguish. Her neighbors watched, first with curiosity, then with growing alarm. Frau Trophia didn't stop. She danced through the day and into the night, her body soaked in sweat, her muscles screaming in protest. She collapsed from exhaustion, only to get up and start dancing again moments later. She was trapped in a relentless, silent rhythm, a prisoner in her own body. This was just the beginning. Within a week, something truly terrifying started to happen. One by one, others joined her. First a handful, then dozens. Men, women, and even children were swept up in this unstoppable career. The narrow streets of Strasbourg became a stage for a grotesque and silent ballet. The phenomenon spread like a virus. The dancers weren't celebrating. Their faces were twisted in pain and desperation. They were dancing against their will, their bodies jerking and twisting uncontrollably. Imagine the scene. The town square, usually a place for markets and social gatherings, was now a swirling vortex of human bodies. The air was filled with the sound of shuffling feet, heavy breathing, and the occasional sob or cry for help. The city authorities were baffled and terrified. What was causing this? Was it a curse? A new kind of sickness? They were desperate for answers. So, they did what any sensible medieval authority would do. They consulted the experts. Physicians were called in. They observed the dancers, noting their feverish state and relentless movements. After much deliberation, they came to a diagnosis. It wasn't a supernatural curse, they concluded, but a case of hot blood. Their medical theory was that the afflicted had overheated blood, and the only way to cure it was to sweat out the excess heat. Their prescription? More dancing. Yes, you heard that right. To cure the uncontrollable dancing, they prescribed even more dancing. The city council took this advice to heart. They cleared out the guild halls and cordoned off public squares to create dedicated dance spaces. They thought if they just let the people dance it all out, the fever would break and the plague would end. But they didn't stop there. In a decision that seems utterly insane to us today, the authorities decided to encourage the mania. They believed that the dancers needed to be guided by a proper rhythm. So, they erected a massive wooden stage in the middle of the city. They hired professional musicians, drummers, pipers, and fiddlers to play upbeat, energetic tunes around the clock. They even hired healthy dancers to dance alongside the afflicted, hoping to keep them moving and guide their frantic steps. The result was catastrophic. The music didn't cure them. It fueled the fire. The constant, driving beats seemed to intensify the compulsion. The number of dancers swelled from dozens to over 400. The heart of Strasbourg turned into a massive, open-air dance marathon from hell. For weeks, the music played on, and the people danced. The scene must have been surreal and horrifying. Hundreds of people, their clothes torn and dirty, their feet bloody and raw, dancing relentlessly under the hot summer sun. They weren't eating. They weren't sleeping. They were just dancing. One by one, their bodies began to give out. People started collapsing from sheer exhaustion, heart attacks, and strokes. Reports from the time claimed that at the plague's peak, as many as 15 people were dying each day. They were literally dancing themselves to death. The physicians and city councilors watched in horror as their cure turned into a public execution. The stage they had built became a platform of death. The cheerful music played by the hired musicians became a funeral dirge for the very people it was meant to save. The streets of Strasbourg were filled with the dead and dying, all victims of this mysterious dancing frenzy. Realizing their catastrophic mistake, the authorities finally changed their approach. They banned all public dancing and music. The remaining dancers were rounded up, not for a party, but for a pilgrimage. They were taken to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, a saint who was believed to have power over neurological disorders, including what was then known as Saint Vitus's dance. The afflicted were made to pray for forgiveness and divine intervention. And then, as mysteriously as it began, the dancing stopped. Sometime in early September, the last of the dancers ceased their frantic movements. The music fell silent, and an eerie quiet descended upon the exhausted city. The dancing plague of 1518 was over, but the questions remained. What on earth had just happened? For centuries, historians and scientists have tried to solve this bizarre medical mystery. There are several leading theories, but no one knows for sure. One of the most popular theories is ergot is a type of mold that grows on damp rye, which was a staple grain for bread at the time. This mold contains a psychoactive chemical that is structurally similar to LSD. If the citizens of Strasbourg had eaten contaminated bread, it could have caused convulsions, hallucinations, and muscle spasm symptoms that sound eerily similar to the dancing plague. However, ergotism usually causes gangrene and restricts blood flow, which wasn't widely reported among the dancers. Also, it's hard to explain how hundreds of people would react in such a uniform, coordinated way. Another compelling theory is mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. Think of it as a social contagion. Strasbourg in 1518 was a city under extreme stress. Famine, poverty, and disease were rampant. The population was living on a knife's edge of anxiety and desperation. In this high-stress environment, the theory goes, the sight of Frau Trofea's strange public dance acted as a trigger for a population that deeply believed in supernatural curses and divine punishment. Seeing something so bizarre could have sparked a chain reaction. The stress manifested physically, leading to a collective, trance-like state where people lost control of their body. The authorities' reaction building a stage and hiring musicians would have only validated the delusion and made it spread faster. This theory suggests that the dancing wasn't a physical disease in the traditional sense, but a psychological one, amplified by cultural beliefs and extreme social stress. It was a desperate, physical expression of a community's collective trauma. So, what was it? A Mindolter fungus? A psychological breakdown on a massive scale, or something else entirely that we can't even comprehend today. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's most fascinating and unsettling unsolved mysteries. It's a chilling reminder of how vulnerable the human mind can be, and how, under the right conditions, reality can become a waking nightmare. It forces us to ask, could something like this ever happen again? What do you think caused the dancing plague? Let me know your theories down in the comments. I'd love to read them. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the bizarre side of history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into historical mysteries. See you next time.